Hey guys, welcome. Pastor Evan with me here today, and we are wrapping up. We've been in the series Redefining Love, and so let's look back where we started from, because we've been trying to redefine love based off of how God defines love. So first week we talked about God as the source of love. We can't have love in our life without going to that source. Then we talked about living a life of love, and that was really dealing about love in different relationships, not just marriages, but all relationships. Then we talked last week, love through forgiveness, and that's choosing grace even when it's really hard. And that was such a great message this week.
And even in the dark. So
Yes, and Matt Toon did it in the dark for some of those that were there. This is great. This week, we're wrapping up. We wrapped up love, this redefining love, and we talked about love in action. But instead of like the relationship side, this is more of the loving like Jesus means serving others. It's that inconvenient, uncomfortable, even when it feels beneath us, we take the action of love.
Yeah, and so I was even thinking of for myself of what that looks like of being in a marriage relationship or a relationship with kids. And I mean, to myself, how many times have I put the empty milk carton into the trash? And it overflows the trash, and then
stacking it up.
I just push it down. But really, if it was love and action for that, would be me serving my family. Like, if there's anybody I'm going to serve the best,
should start in home.
It should be wide. And so, I walk past the shoes, or I don't put my underwear up, and I just throw it on the ground.
He's being real honest
right?
Today.
This
is great.
So I think that's
real.
That's what this story is that we talked about on Sunday. Is sometimes we oversee that, like, oh, that's not serving. So, well, that's probably serving the people that we love most.
Yeah.
And that's probably showing Christ to my own kids and my own life.
Yeah.
That's probably what loving your wife as Christ loves the church. And so that's really what this week was about.
Yeah, it really is. And so for you guys, this is like, we've been in these kind of same situations at home. Maybe it is at work or these places. We see this need, and instead of just taking care of it, we're like, well, somebody else should do that. Like, that's somebody else's job, not my job. That was the one that we steer away from, right? But or you say, I hope someone helps with that, anything like that. But Jesus, when we live this life following Jesus and following the example He sets, it's very different. It's this humble, active, and selfless love. So let's take a moment today. We're going to look at John 13. That's where the chapter we were in this week we talked about. And it's the night before Jesus going to the cross. He's spending time with the disciples. They start the dinner with having an argument about who's the greatest. It's kind of like my kids about every other night. Like, who's your favorite, Dad? Like, and they're doing the same thing with Jesus. But Jesus responds, but it's not with this lecture. He doesn't, correct them and put them in their place. Instead, he gets up from the table and begins to wash their feet.
Object lesson.
Object lesson. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, they're in the midst of fighting, of choosing who's the better one. And so he says this in 4 and 5. It says that Jesus gets up from the table and he takes off his robe and he wraps a towel around his waist as a servant would, and he pours water into the basin, and then he begins to wash the disciples' feet, and he dries them with the towel and around his waist. And it's just this really powerful scene for them of where Jesus isn't just like, he's kind of been telling them about, like, he's been showing them in ways of when they're healing people, feeding people, and now he's like really turned it towards them and like, hey, this is why I came, is to serve you. And there's even Peter was like, no. You're not washing my feet.
Right.
And Jesus is like, Peter, if I don't wash your feet, you're not a part of this. And Peter's like, wash my whole body.
That's not it either.
But that's what happens is now he's drying their feet and he washes them.
Which culturally speaking for this time would have been very like, for who Jesus was, this, as they recognized this Lord, Rabbi, teacher, like the washing of the feet was the lowest servant's job. Like this was you just got into the group, you were the bottom of the rung servant, and that's who, because they, think about it, they're open-toed sandals for the most part, like they're not wearing closed-toed shoes, no Air Jordans,
walking around.
Yeah, dusty, dirty roads, and so when you came into the house, like you needed to clean your hands and you cleaned your feet. Well, that was the lowest servant's job, but here's Jesus, Lord Messiah, kneeling down. And it's because love's not about this status. That's what he's trying to teach them, and it's about serving.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting situation of where Jesus is wanting to clean their feet, and typically if you're hosting in a house, then they're like, no, we got somebody else to come and to do that. And so, I mean, their feet are covered in dust and stepped in camel stuff, and you know, they've got all of that.
Yeah.
And so Matthew even says, he outlines in chapter 23, he goes, the greatest among you must be a servant. And then, you know, Mark also echoes that in chapter 10. He goes, the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve.
Yeah, and that's what I think real love is supposed to look like, right? It's not feelings. We've been trying to say that from the beginning of this series. It's not about feelings. Love is action. And it's not about this place of honor or importance. It's about being available to serve others. It really is.
Yeah, so if we get practical, loving Jesus or having a servant's heart means kind of three phrases we talked about on Sunday. The first one is, give me eyes to see.
Yep. We want to pray, God, open my eyes. Like, this is a good way to start your day before you go into work, class, whatever you're in. God, open my eyes for the needs around me. And that's when you start to see the overflowing trash. You see somebody sitting alone. Maybe it's a Sunday morning as you're coming in and serving, right? You see that coworker struggling. It's you see those things. God, open my eyes to see those things. And then it's the ears to hear.
Yeah. So I think with our, like, if you've ever bought a new vehicle or new to you.
This is good. Yeah.
Right? Like, so if you buy a white vehicle and you buy a white, like I have a white Ford truck, and now all over the place I see this white Ford truck. And I think that's what this whole situation is he says eyes to see and ears to hear. And if I'm saying, God, speak to me today, help me to hear what's going on around me, it's gonna happen all of a sudden. It's gonna unlock that, good. And you're gonna see that. So God, help me to hear beyond surface things. Help me to hear what people are going through. Help me to hear what's, the person in the Starbucks line is going behind me, what they're communicating and they're talking about. And maybe people are trying to figure things out. And so what we're really doing is saying, God, give me ears to hear what other people are wrestling with.
Yeah. Yep. And then that leads to us having a heart to care, which is when we see the need. It's saying, God, is this for me? Like, are you giving me this assignment? You've put this person in front of me, this coworker next to me, this classmate in the room with me. Is this what you got for me? And you're more times than not, I think we're going to hear God say yes. And that's when you can say, all right, I got this. This one's mine. I'm going to handle this.
Yeah. So what we talked about on Sunday was like serving isn't what we do, but it's a servant is who we are. So it's not all about what we're doing, but it's like really our heart and our condition of like who we are. Philippians tells us have the same mindset of Christ. And so if Christ's mindset at washing the disciples' feet was, I just want to be a servant. That's who I am. That's what we need to do ourselves.
Yep, which we start to take on that identity of Christ, of being followers of Christ, that we're contributors, not consumers, that we are the church and we exist to serve other people. That is so good. So here's a challenge. Let's start our day, each and every day this week, right? Let's leave this week going, God, give me eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart to care. And then when we see those needs, say, all right, I've got this. This one's mine.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's be people that love through action, because that's who Jesus is. Eyes to see, ears to hear, hearts that care. And so we're going to talk about that more in your group of what it would look like for us to say, you know what, I can do it. This one's mine.
All right, group leaders, back to you.